So here we go. Let's do the first thing up, which is the top 10 non-conference games for 2025. Number 10. It is a renewed rivalry, a classic rivalry, one that will definitely have an impact on the playoff for sure. And that is Notre Dame at Miami. Catholics versus convicts. Again, a renewed rivalry for week one. This one is Sunday, August 31st, which is next weekend. One of the few Sunday games college football has to offer. We will be doing a rare watch along. I think last year it was the USC LSU game. This year it's Notre Dame and Miami. First game against each other since 2017. That was a bit of a blowout. Same stadium, same setting. 41-8. The Hurricanes absolutely destroyed the Irish. But Notre Dame does lead this series 18-8. A little bit of history behind the two. And it'll be the first test for the Fighting Irish, as they have a lot coming back, but they also lost a bit, especially one of their key weapons that we talked about last year, and Riley Leonard. We talked a little bit of ish on kind of being one-dimensional against elite teams, but we'll find out if Miami is a elite team and if they are for real. Yes, the Hurricanes, they have also a decent offensive line coming back. They are not going to be in our top 25. That's why we said atrocious top 25 for the AP. But yeah, I think the big factor in this one is going to be the weather. It's going to be a little spicy down there in South Florida for the Irish. Hopefully they prepare to get their sweat on for sure. I think the big thing, if Notre Dame loses, will it prevent them from getting into the playoff? That's kind of the big thing at play here. Is this going to be the game that does it? They have quite a few tough tests in the beginning of the year. The back end is going to be a little bit easier, I would say. We'll get more into that when we do the top 25 in their section. But yeah, number 10 will be Notre Dame at Miami for week one. Number 9, maybe a surprise to some few out there, but Iowa versus Iowa State at Jack Trice Stadium. The Big 10 versus the Big 12. This is a week 2 matchup on Saturday, September 6th. Yeah, 6th. This will be our morning watch along game. It's an early kickoff. And the series has been back and forth. Iowa State won a nice nail biter last year, 20-19 at Iowa City. That was on the Hawkeyes turf. Iowa owns this series at the moment, 47-24 overall. It's an important game for the Big 12. If they want to have multiple teams in the playoff, they need to show it on the field. And this is that opportunity for not only the Cyclones, Matt Campbell and company, but for the conference. They can solidify this early season win. Let's just say the Big 12 might have multiple teams in the playoff. I'm not making that a prediction or anything like that, but I will not be surprised. And then another big question too is Iowa going to be bouncing back into 2025? It was a little bit of a rough 2024. We'll see if they address the quarterback situation. And yeah, that's really the big thing for Iowa. Can they come back? Ferentz is he getting up there? Obviously in age, he's the longest tenured head coach. Is it time for him to move on if it's not a good bounce back into 2025? And then another big one, we're obviously going to find out a little bit about the Cyclones in week 0. Rocco Beck, is he going to work well with these new wide receivers early in the season? Hopefully they got everything in sync, especially for this game, as it was a low scoring affair, but you need to be effective in key moments. So can Beck and company get it going? They have a lot coming back. We're going to talk about a little bit more of them in the top 25, as they're going to be a ranked team. And yes, number 9 is Iowa at Iowa State. Number 8. No, wait. Did we skip one? Oh, I think I already messed up the slides. It's supposed to be this one. Florida at Miami. We'll just go back and look at that other slide for Baylor and SMU. It's a little bit of a preview, I guess, for number 7. But number 8, Florida at Miami. Neither of these teams will be ranked. Spoilers. SEC versus ACC Week 4 matchup on Saturday, September 20th. The Hurricanes blew out the Gators last year, 41-17. Just wasn't even close. Wait, no, Miami does lead this. Sorry, I was going to say the Gators do not. They are 3 games behind. It's a 30-27 difference there. I was kind of surprised. I feel like this matchup would happen more often, especially the last 10 years. But previous to last year, it was 2019 when the last 2 met. They need to make this an every year series. What are you guys doing over there in Florida? You always brag about state bragging rights and whatnot. Make it a thing. Make it every year. Make it mandatory. Especially it's SEC versus ACC. Maybe in a couple years this game will be a lot bigger than what it is at the moment. Even though I do have it in my top 10, I just have it there because again, it's the ACC versus SEC. It's one of those random matchups that might have an impact on the playoff. Bald man with the white shirt has the Gators in his predicted playoff. I'm not doing that this year because our top 25, which will show why our top 25 is the best in the country. We'll get to that eventually. Again, an important game for the ACC. They need to show themselves worthy on the field and to the people that make those decisions on how many teams in their conference make the playoffs. I would say Notre Dame was kind of their extra team that they got in last year, even though they are an independent, but kind of had that association. And a lot of ACC fans put them in the same group as the Fighting Irish. And you want to get one over the SEC, especially if the Gators go into other grounds in SEC territory and disrupt, maybe get an upset win. They do have one of the toughest schedules in the country. This is one of the reasons why they got to go to Miami, and then they have a whole plethora of games in the Southeastern Conference that they have to overcome. And one big thing about this game too is, are the Gators legit? Is DJ Langway gonna step up? Is he gonna rise to the occasion? Is this one of those games, or are they gonna fumble once again? But there were some injuries last season that they had to deal with, and actually that's the reason why DJ came into the fold as a starting QB. Not towards the tail end. It was actually in the beginning. It was a Samford game where he had to come in and get his first start. And this is another one. If Miami loses, will it prevent the ACC from getting multiple teams into the playoff like they did last year with SMU and Clemson getting in? If they have multiple losses out of conference, is that going to look bad on the ACC resume? And why it's an important game here for Week 8. Number 7, as we go back to this slide, Baylor at SMU. The Big 12 versus the ACC here. A little different, as I'm stuttering through the words. Week 2 matchup, one of those little surprise ones, as Baylor has a tough first 2 weeks of the season. They got Auburn the week before this. A lot of the people that know what they're talking about, especially us here, are predicting that they're going to beat the Tigers. But they have a road test here against the Ponies in Dallas for Week 2. This is on Saturday, September 6th. It's actually the first meeting between the two since 2016. SMU hasn't beaten Baylor since 1986, back when the two were in the Southwestern Conference, which is kind of nuts. Yeah, I would have thought SMU would have gotten one at least this century, because I know they've had a few matchups. But those few matchups have actually put Baylor on top of SMU in the series, 39-36. And it's a matchup going to be important for both conferences. Big 12 needs that, kind of gimme win on their resume. I think a little bit more than the ACC. They have teams that will most likely get in, like your Clemsons, maybe your SMUs. who are actually talking about, I think they could probably lose this game. I mean, they did lose to a Big 12 team last year and still get into the playoff. That was BYU. They did have that quarterback little shuffle in the beginning of 2024. That's not going to be a thing because Kevin Jennings is their guy going into 2025, and he is a legit quarterback. Just maybe not legit against elite opponents. I don't think Baylor is going to be elite, but they do have a ton coming back on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. We talked about that in our previews in the offseason, especially for that Kansas State Baylor game for week 6. This is 4 weeks before that. If they can win this game, they can carry a lot of momentum, especially if they can go off and beat Auburn and SMU. That's just a great start to the season for Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears. And I do think this is a bigger game than the Auburn one because again, a lot of people like us and everyone else usually talking about college football have Baylor over Auburn in week 1 because Auburn has a lot of shuffling around. I think the offensive line will be solid enough though for Hugh Freeze and company, even though that's again in week 1, which is technically next week. Number 6, we got Michigan at Oklahoma. I'm actually gonna zoom out. And I got these all out of order. Maybe I need to, let's just fix the order real quick. Thought I double checked these, but apparently it's totally fine. Things happen like that. Let's go back to that full screen. There we go. Michigan at Oklahoma. Battle of the Brands, Big Ten versus the SEC. This is a week 2 game. This is actually going to be our week 2 watch along game. It's going to be a classic for sure, right, guys? Right? Saturday, September 6th is when this occurs. Most of the games I think on this list are in week 2. Some in week 1, sprinkled in there. We have a week 6, week 4, week 14. We'll get to that. Second meeting between the two college giants. 1975 was the last meeting in an Orange Bowl for a national championship, which the Sooners won all the way back when Barry Switzer was in charge, getting one over Bo Schembechler, the legendary coach for Michigan there. And we'll see if Sharon Moore can even up the series, because that's definitely probably a talking point for this game. Other talking points is Oklahoma going to be struggling in the beginning of the year with the new offense, which they had a ton of problems with in 2024, especially getting the ball out. The protection, I think, was all right. The run blocking was excellent. Obviously, they beat Alabama last year, and that was their bread and butter and getting that upset at home. But for this season, how's it all going to work? You got Mateer, you got Ott. You have a few transfers in at wide receiver coming up from the FCS. Is that all going to pay off? Because it's kind of a big gamble for Venerables, especially coming in with a new offensive coordinator as well, coming from Washington State along with Mateer. And another one for their opponents, question to ask is if Underwood starts, how is a true freshman going to handle the pressure on the road? Now, for me, I would prefer Mikey Keene to be in the starting role early on in the season. Let Underwood develop a little bit more, acclimate himself even more to the offense. I know he came in at the spring, but Keene just adds, I think, that extra element, that experience. He's gotten wins over Big Ten teams in the past, or at least teams that are now in the Big Ten, and has been very competitive. I think that's also why he made his way from Fresno State over to Ann Arbor. Whoever's making the deals for the NIL to get players in and out there for Michigan, they definitely saw that in their game last year when the Bulldogs came to the Big House, and I wouldn't say impressed, but were competitive early on. Obviously, it fell apart once that pick 6 from Will Johnson happened. But again, Mikey Keene, still think he's going to add an element to this offense that Underwood just will not bring at the moment, because again, he's a very young quarterback true freshman on the road. It's a lot to ask for a young man to come in and get that victory, but we'll see. Sherman Moore hasn't announced his starter unless I'm live right now. I know they've been doing that the last couple of days of announcing starting quarterbacks, but at the moment hasn't been solidified yet. Also, a thing to mention is Michigan going to get some revenge on the SEC. Last year, they lost to Texas at home. Will they help out the Big Ten, get this nice road win against an SEC opponent in Oklahoma? That's kind of weird to say still, even it's going into year 2 with the Sooners being in the conference. So somewhat of a big game. I don't think either of these two will be making the playoffs. One should be, ranked for us. The other one's not going to be. Find out when we get to the top 25. But yeah, this could be that extra game that the Big Ten can get over the SEC and getting more teams into the playoff, even though either of them probably are not going to be participating. Still a big game. Oklahoma hosting Michigan there. Then we move to number 5. Texas A&M at Notre Dame. A nice slugfest for week 3. This one's September 13th. Another Saturday game. I think actually all these are Saturday games. And it's another watch-along one. So we have week 1, who we're going to get to for our watch-along. Week 2 is the one that we just did, Michigan at Oklahoma. Week 3 is Texas A&M at Notre Dame. The 7th meeting between the two and the second home-and-home series as Notre Dame leads a 4-2 ratio there. A&M's never won in South Bend, even though they have beaten Notre Dame, but that was for postseason, I guess, realm of games, all the way back, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s, when the Aggies got some wins in the Cotton Bowl against Notre Dame. So it's only been a postseason win for A&M, nothing on Irish turf. We'll see if that changes this year. I think this game is also going to be important because it's a great backup plan for the Irish if for some reason they don't get the win in Miami. They'll have a couple other games after this one to make sure they have on their resume so that the committee, when they look at the Irish going into the postseason, they consider them at least one that is worthy to be in that bracket. So again, great backup plan if things don't go well. And then also if things don't go well after this game. I mean, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois at home last year. It was a big shocker to a lot of us who overlooked the Huskies coming in. But, the problem was Notre Dame was very one-dimensional, and especially teams that can really take out the passing distribution for their offense. They can be very successful against Notre Dame. Another big question, how Marcel Reed develops, especially passing the ball. He had the same kind of issue later down in the season, even though last year's matchup, neither of these starting quarterbacks were participated in. It's going to be a new duo going at each other. So I'm going to be hoping that he develops, adds a little bit to his game, can be a little bit effective in the short game, not just be a complete run fest. That's why we said slugfest in the beginning of this. Definitely will be a game determined on who wins at the trenches and the least amount of mistakes by their young quarterbacks, even though Marcel Reed is going into his redshirt sophomore year. Number 5, Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Number 4, this one takes us to the end of the season. This is Clemson at South Carolina. We just did our previews for the season. We did every single week. We just put that out not too long ago in clip and full form because we do 3 games for that. ACC versus the SEC, the best that the two conferences that go up against each other has to offer. Week 14 matchup. This one Saturday, November 29th. It's the 122nd meeting of the Palmetto Bowl. Gamecocks stole one last year as Lenore Sellers bailed the Gamecocks out. But Clemson leads it 73-44. Again, the best the SEC and ACC games have to offer will definitely have an impact on the seeding. I was a little surprised last year when Beamer was trying to make their case for South Carolina getting into the playoff. Unfortunately, they lost to Alabama. That kind of kept them out. If they would have won that game or snuck that field goal in against LSU, they definitely would have been a playoff team because they had the Clemson win at the end of the season. Maybe it should have kept Clemson out of the playoff, or at least maybe SMU, but the committee thought otherwise and allowed two ACC teams in. But I think this year, we really are putting a lot of chips in for the Gamecocks and Shane Beamer, and hopefully they deliver, because we think this will impact the seeding of the upcoming playoffs. The big question, will Clemson come back to dominating this series? I think it's been back and forth of them getting each other on their opponent's home turf. We'll see if South Carolina can stop that this year. And then I think another thing to mention, because a lot of people have Cade Klubnik as one of the favorites, if not the favorite, in the preseason to win the Heisman. But there is another awesome, amazing dual threat quarterback in Lenore Sellers. And maybe it's at the end of the season, two quarterbacks going up against each other and finishing up their Heisman campaigns. And hopefully they also stay healthy. Sellers dealt with some issues. I think in the middle of the season where Ashford had to come in and get some snaps in at quarterback. But we'll see what happens, as those two should be Heisman hopefuls. So Clemson versus South Carolina is number 4. Number 3 for the top 10 non-conference games. And another surprising one, especially how high it is, Boise State at Notre Dame. Another one in South Bend to talk about. So it's 3 for the Fighting Irish. They got a lot of games, a lot of big games. Maybe a little bit of David versus Goliath here. Week 6, October 4th for this matchup. First ever meeting between the two. And one of the big questions, can the Broncos compete in the trenches? As this will be a bit of a Super Bowl kind of feel for, my Broncos. There's a reason, so you see my blue turf there. There's a reason why the room is blue. It's going to be a big one. And if they can compete, it's going to be a great game to watch, and why we have it up there. Because if the Broncos get this big road win, which a lot are not predicting they will, I have been, echoing this on social media quite a bit of my Broncos going 12-0 this season somehow without Aston Genty. And we'll talk about that more in the top 25 once we get to them. They are a ranked team for sure. The seeding, as we have it being the third biggest game, and it will be very impactful, especially again if Spencer Daniels and company go to South Bend and upset Marcus Freeman and his Fighting Irish. Because a lot of people do have Boise State as a playoff team, but that's at the number 12 seed. And if they get this game, they will most likely be a top 10 team, which means they will get a top 10 seeding, which means they might be hosting a college football playoff game, which would be amazing to see on the blue turf. That would be absolutely beautiful to witness. And again, this is another game for Notre Dame. They'll have Arkansas the week before this in Fayetteville. So, there's going to be a lot of bumps and bruises most likely for the Irish before they get to this matchup. But Boise had some issues in the offensive line with availability last season, but they also have the depth. Because of that, going into this season, they only lost one offensive lineman. That was one of the many starters that they had last season. So yeah, a little bit more to know there. As Boise State at Notre Dame, the number 3 top non-conference game. Number 2 should be number 1. I think magnitude-wise, gravity-wise, Texas at Ohio State in the shoe should probably be number 1, but we have another game to talk about after this one. A week 1 game, SEC versus Big Ten. A rematch of last year's semifinal that was in the Cotton Bowl. This is next week, August 30th. This will be our morning watch-along game. Hopefully you consider tuning in here on the couch with me. The 5th meeting between the two, it's an even series as Ohio State evened that up again in that semifinal game. Sagan versus Manning might be a matchup we see again this season or next year. But yeah, Julian Sayin has been announced, and I already had it in my notes before he was announced because I know ball. The starter for the Buckeyes going into 2025. That was actually announced this morning. Arch Manning, who is the obvious starter for the Texas Longhorns. He's been waiting at least 2 years now to get the reins to take over for the Longhorns. It's going to be an excellent matchup between the two. And I think just like the Notre Dame Texas A&M game, it's going to be who makes the fewest mistakes between those two. I think another element to add into this, and another big question, is Jeremiah Smith going to be a decoy or the spearhead? As he only recorded 1 reception for 3 yards in that semifinal win for the Buckeyes. So that's why we're saying decoy. Is he going to cause enough attention to allow Carnell Tate, Innis, Quincy Porter, who's a true freshman for the Buckeyes? We'll maybe see some him run some routes. There's a new tight end we'll talk about when we get into the top 25 for Ohio State. But yeah, that is going to be a big question. How locked down is Jeremiah Smith going to be in this game? Texas did an excellent job. They do bring in a lot of those DBs that did that work for the Longhorns in the Cotton Bowl last season, but wasn't enough. Actually wasn't enough, unfortunately. Another one that might have more impact on the path for either of these two. I think, last year we saw Oregon, who was the number 1 seed, but had a little bit of rougher of a road. Obviously, they got knocked out in the Rose Bowl by Ohio State, who eventually played Texas right after that game. But I think this season with the new seeding, which is a little bit, it is what it is. I know people are going to cry and moan about Boise getting the bye, but, don't set up a system. And also don't let in a fox into a hen's, a chicken hen. Wait, what am I saying? Chicken den? Was that how that goes? Don't let the fox in. That's all that mattered. Regardless, I think this game will have an impact on, your 1, 2, 3 seed, maybe 4. I'm expecting Ohio State to get to that Big Ten championship game, and I'm also expecting Texas to get to that Big SEC championship game. I'm thinking of Big 12. Still, again, second year with a team not in that conference. Got to get used to it. But number 2, Texas at Ohio State is the second biggest non-conference game. Number 1, which is also a game we're going to be watching along next Saturday night. Not this upcoming Saturday night. It'll be Saturday morning with Iowa State at Kansas State in Ireland. But number 1, LSU at Clemson. Week 1, August 30th. The fifth meeting between the two, the last time the two played, it was for a national championship where the Tigers won 42-25. LSU also leads the series 3-1. I was going to say 31-1 for some reason. 3-1 there. Will the Tigers continue their current tradition of losing their opener going back to 2019? I love saying that because, yeah, they haven't won one in a while. It was, yeah, Coach Ogeron. I don't even know that game in 2018, which was the opener. Maybe they just need to have like a more of a cupcake rather than a big old meal, big old steak. Because they couldn't get the job done last year against USC. It was Florida State the year before that. I think it was Florida State again the year before that. But yeah, they have another ACC team to do business with. We'll see if they can show up, especially with the offensive line losses that they had. Again, we'll get into that when we get into the top 25. But I think a question, because I think you're kind of getting where I'm going with, we're not favoring the LSU Tigers in the other Death Valley. But the question after that, if they do lose, is how fast the LSU fans are going to get over Brian Kelly losing this game, maybe again, as an opener. Because, you know, some of those LSU fans have memory loss, but some of them have some pretty solid memory. We'll see how fast they get over that. Clemson in action against somewhat of an elite offense is also going to be interesting. Last year, they just got kind of dogged against Georgia. Unfortunately, there, but their defense held up for at least 2 quarters. They just couldn't get anything going on offense. This year, their offense is quote unquote elite, but I think it's the defense going up against Garrett Nussmeier and company. Should be a proper test for them, and they most likely get the win, as that's kind of the only prediction we have out of these 10 so far that we're going to say. And again, the ACC needs to win it here, getting another one over the SEC, so that at the end of the season, when the committee looks at the resumes, they see that the ACC has a nice win over maybe an LSU that beat an Alabama on the road. That's probably not going to happen. Or, you know, some other team in the conference. They don't play Georgia. They do play South Carolina, Texas A&M, maybe one of those two who are on the outskirts looking in and trying to build their resume, but unfortunately have that loss against LSU, who then loses to Clemson. You know, it's again a must-win game for the Atlantic Coast Conference. And yeah, that has been it for the top 10 non-conference games. My voice cracked there. Isn't that nice? We're getting back into the lives for 2025. But that's it for the section. Don't forget to tune in to the Pre-Snap Read Wednesday show, where we're going to preview most of these games going week by week for the upcoming season. And you'll find out who we are predicting for those other 9. As yeah, we're definitely going to take Clemson over LSU at home. Yeah, who's not going to do that? You're crazy. You're crazy unless you got some insight that I don't got. Like Clay Klubnik, for some reason, broke his pinky or something like that. And let us know your top 10 non-conference games in the comments down below or in the chat. Or maybe one we missed. That why did you miss this one, Rody? How could you? How could you do that to us? As we're going down the list, that was the first